Sebastian grabbed the woman's throat before he was fully awake. She screamed. He released her instantly, stumbling backward, his heart slamming against his ribs. She was wearing his shirt, nothing else. Rope burns circled her wrists like bracelets made of blood. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. She looked him dead in the eyes. "I'm your fiancé, and I need you to destroy our engagement before my father kills me." If you want to know why she's running for her life, subscribe and stay until the end. Comment your city. I want to see how far her story travels. Sebastian's hand was still shaking. He'd almost strangled her. He'd woken to a shadow moving across his study, and 15 years of instinct had taken over before his mind caught up. Now she was pressed against the back of his sofa, clutching a blanket to her chest, those green eyes wide with terror, but not surprise, like she'd expected violence, like she was used to it. "Say that again," he said. "Which part?" Her voice was wrecked, raw. "The fiancé part, or the part where my father wants me dead?" "Both," she laughed. It was an ugly sound, broken and sharp. "My name is Vivian Hartley. Our family signed the marriage contract 3 years ago. We're supposed to be announced in London in 2 weeks." She pulled the blanket tighter. "And if my father finds out I'm here, asking you to end this, he will kill me. Not metaphorically. Actually kill me." Sebastian stared at her. Hartley. The name hit him like a fist to the chest. His intended bride. The woman on paper. The alliance his dead parents had arranged to secure Wintermore's future. He'd never seen her face, never heard her voice, never wondered what she wanted. Now she was sitting in his study at 4 in the morning, wearing his shirt, telling him her father was going to murder her. "You're lying." "I wish I was." The Earl of Hartley is one of the most respected men in Parliament. The Earl of Hartley beat my mother until she couldn't walk. Vivian's voice didn't waver. Then he told everyone she'd fallen down the stairs. When she died, the physician ruled it an accident. No one questioned it. She met his eyes. No one ever questions him. Sebastian couldn't breathe. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need you to understand." She stood slowly, and the blanket fell away. His shirt hung to her thighs, the collar gaping, her collarbone sharp beneath pale skin. "I'm not here because I'm dramatic or difficult or whatever he's told you about me. I'm here because if I marry you, I become his property, legally, completely. And the day I stop being useful, I'll have an accident too." The room was silent except for the rain hammering against the windows. Sebastian's mind was racing. The Earl of Hartley. Charming. Powerful. The kind of man who laughed easily, and shook hands firmly, and made everyone in the room feel like his closest friend. The kind of man no one would ever suspect. "Why come to me?" Sebastian asked. "Why not run? Disappear?" "To where?" Vivian's laugh was bitter. "I'm a woman with no money, no connections, no skills anyone will pay for. The moment I step outside his reach, I become a scandal, a cautionary tale. Every door in England closes." She gestured at the space between them. "You're the only person who can end this engagement without destroying me completely." "And if I refuse?" Something flickered in her eyes. Fear. Real fear. "Then I'll find another way. I've survived this long. I'll figure something out." She said it like someone who'd been figuring things out alone for a very long time. Sebastian turned away, moving to the window. The rain was still falling, relentless. And through the gray morning light, he could see the river, swollen, churning, furious. And where the bridge should have been, there was nothing but broken stone. "Christ, I know." Vivian's voice was small behind him. I barely made it across. The water was already over the road when I reached it. My horse threw me when the first stones started falling. I had to swim the last 20 feet. You could have died. I almost did. A pause. Would that have been simpler for you? He spun around. I'm not accusing you of anything. She held up her hands, her rope-burned, scraped, bloody hands. I'm just stating facts. If I'd drowned last night, your problem would be solved. You'd find another bride. My father would find another daughter to sell. Everyone wins. You don't actually believe that. Don't I? They stared at each other across the room. Sebastian felt something shift in his chest. Something he couldn't name. The bridge is gone, he said finally. You're trapped here for at least a week, maybe longer. Vivian went pale. A week? The river's too dangerous to cross any other way. Even if we could get a boat, the current would... I understand. But her hands were shaking. He could see it from across the room. What are you afraid of? He asked. That I'll send word to your father? Won't you? I don't know yet. It was the most honest thing he could say. He didn't know what to do with any of this. The accusation against a man he'd respected. The woman standing in his study like a cornered animal. The engagement he'd accepted without question. Vivian studied him for a long moment. Then something in her posture changed. The fear didn't disappear, but something else joined it. Something harder. 5 days, she said. What? You said the bridge will take at least a week. That gives us 5 days before anyone can reach us. She stepped toward him. Give me 5 days to prove I'm telling the truth. 5 days to show you who my father really is. And at the end, if you still think I'm lying, if you still think this marriage should happen, I'll go quietly. I won't fight. I won't cause a scandal. And if I believe you, then you break the engagement, publicly. Make it your decision, not mine. Tell everyone you found me unsuitable. I'll be ruined, but I'll be alive. Her voice cracked on the last word. That's all I'm asking for. A chance to live. Sebastian should say no. He should send for her father immediately. He should do the sensible thing, the political thing, the thing that protected his family's interests. But he kept seeing her hands. The rope burns, the scrapes, the way she'd flinched when he moved too fast. 5 days, he heard himself say. Vivian's eyes widened. You mean it? Don't make me regret it. For a moment, just a moment, something that might have been hope flickered across her face. Then it was gone, locked away behind that careful mask. I'll try not to. The door burst open. Mrs. Duncan stood in the doorway, her face white with fury. Your Grace! The housekeeper's voice could have cut glass. What in God's name are you doing in here with... She stopped, looked at Vivian, looked at Sebastian, looked at the distance between them. Oh no. No. Mrs. Duncan, I left her for 1 hour. The older woman advanced into the room like a general taking the field. 1 hour to sleep before I came back to check on her, and somehow she's ended up in your study, in your shirt, with you hovering over her like... I wasn't hovering. You were hovering. Mrs. Duncan positioned herself between them, arms crossed. Miss, are you all right? Did he frighten you? Vivian blinked. No. I frightened him, actually. You... Mrs. Duncan turned to Sebastian, eyebrows climbing toward her hairline. She frightened you? I woke up to a stranger in my study. I reacted poorly. He couldn't quite meet the housekeeper's eyes. It won't happen again. It certainly won't, because I'm taking this young lady upstairs right now and putting her in a proper room with a proper lock. Mrs. Duncan reached for Vivian's arm, then hesitated. If that's all right with you, miss, I won't touch you if you don't want. Something shifted in Vivian's expression, a crack in the armor. Yes, thank you. Mrs. Duncan nodded briskly. Come along then. We'll get you fed and dressed and warm. And then His Grace can have a proper conversation with you when you don't look like you've been dragged through a river. I was dragged through a river. All the more reason to get some food in you. The housekeeper was already steering her toward the door. Your Grace, I'll send breakfast to your study. Try not to terrorize any more young women before noon. They were gone before Sebastian could respond. He stood alone in the silence, the faint scent of river water and something floral, lavender maybe, lingering in the air. His fiancée was in his house, running from her father, begging him to destroy their engagement. And he'd agreed to give her 5 days. What the hell had he just done? By mid-morning, the household had settled into an uneasy rhythm. Sebastian buried himself in correspondence, writing carefully worded letters that said Miss Hartley was safe but stranded, that the bridge had collapsed, that no one should worry. He didn't mention her accusations, didn't mention the fear in her eyes. He didn't know what to believe yet. He needed more information. A knock at his study door. Come in! Vivian entered, and Sebastian's breath caught before he could stop it. She'd been transformed. Mrs. Duncan had found her a dress, simple gray wool, slightly too long, clearly from the last decade. But it fit well enough. Her hair was braided and pinned, her face clean, the dark circles under her eyes still visible, but less stark. She looked like a lady, a proper, respectable lady. Except for the bruise darkening on her left cheekbone, the scratches on her hands, the way she stood with her weight on her back foot, ready to run. You wanted to see me? Sit down. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. We need to talk about what happens next. She didn't sit. I'd rather stand. Suit yourself. He leaned back in his chair, watching her. Tell me about your father. What do you want to know? Everything. Start from the beginning. Vivian was quiet for a moment. Then she moved to the window, looking out at the rain-lashed grounds. He was charming when I was young. Everyone said so. What a wonderful father, they'd say. What a devoted husband. He'd bring my mother flowers, take her to parties, show her off like a prize he'd won. Her voice was flat. I was 8 the first time I saw him hit her. Sebastian didn't move. She'd embarrassed him at dinner, said something he didn't like. He waited until the guests left. Then he dragged her into his study by her hair. Vivian's hand drifted to her own hair, unconscious. I was watching through the crack in the door. She saw me. She put her finger to her lips. Shh. Don't make a sound. Vivian, that was the rule, you see. Don't make a sound. Don't fight back. Don't give him a reason to be angry. She turned to face him. My mother followed every rule for 23 years. She was the perfect wife. Obedient. Silent. Invisible. A pause. She died anyway. How? She fell. Vivian's smile was terrible. Down the stairs, in the middle of the night, while my father was in London, surrounded by witnesses who could swear he wasn't home. The smile faded. Her neck was broken in 3 places. The physician said she must have fallen very hard, very many times. Sebastian's stomach turned. And no one investigated? Investigate what? The grieving widower? The pillar of society? Vivian laughed. He cried at her funeral. Everyone said how devoted he was, how tragic. She crossed her arms. 2 weeks later, he started negotiating my marriage contract. To me. To you. She met his eyes. You were the best offer. Young, wealthy, powerful enough to be useful, but not powerful enough to threaten him. And most importantly, she paused, you'd never met me, never spoken to me. You'd have no reason to believe anything I said against him. Sebastian felt cold. You think I was chosen deliberately. I think my father never does anything without a reason. She moved closer to his desk. He's been planning this for 3 years. Every detail, every contingency. And then 2 weeks ago, I found the letters. What letters? Vivian hesitated. For the first time since she'd started talking, she looked uncertain. Letters between my father and his solicitor, about what happens to my inheritance after I marry. She swallowed. My mother left me everything she had, a small fortune from her family. My father can't touch it, not unless I die. The words hung in the air like poison. You think he's going to kill you for your inheritance? I think he's going to wait until I've given you an heir, until I'm no longer necessary. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Then I'll have an accident, just like my mother, and you'll be the grieving widower, and my fortune will pass to my child, who will be under your guardianship, which means my father can access it through you. She laughed, high and brittle. It's quite clever, actually. He's been planning it for years. Sebastian stood so suddenly his chair scraped against the floor. You have proof? These letters? I have copies. She reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out several folded papers. I knew he'd notice if they went missing, so I copied them word for word, every detail, every number. She held them out. Read them, then tell me I'm lying. He took the papers. His hands weren't steady. The first letter was dated 3 years ago, a discussion of marriage negotiations, nothing unusual. The second was from last year, a question about inheritance law. What happens if a married woman dies without children? What happens if she dies with them? The third. Sebastian felt the blood drain from his face. The third letter discussed accidents. Specifically, the kinds of accidents that were difficult to investigate. Falls, drowning, poisoning that mimicked illness. All framed as hypothetical questions, but the meaning was clear. The Earl of Hartley was planning to murder his daughter. You believe me now? Vivian's voice was barely a whisper. Sebastian looked up at her. She was standing very still, her face pale, her eyes fixed on his. She looked like someone waiting to be told she was crazy, hysterical, imagining things. She looked like she'd been told that before. I believe you. Something broke in her expression, a wall crumbling. She pressed her hand to her mouth, and her shoulders shook, and Sebastian realized she was crying, silently, desperately, like someone who'd learned long ago not to make a sound. He moved without thinking, crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. She went rigid. Then she collapsed against him, her hands fisting in his shirt, her tears soaking through the fabric. He held her while she shook, and he didn't say anything, because what the hell could he say? I'm sorry your father is a monster? I'm sorry I almost married you without asking a single question? I'm sorry you had to nearly die to find someone who would listen? The words seemed inadequate, so he just held on. When Vivian finally pulled away, her eyes were red, her face blotchy, but she looked steadier than she had all morning. Sorry, she said roughly. I don't usually. Don't apologize. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. I've been carrying this alone for so long, and I thought you'd be like everyone else. I thought you'd tell me I was imagining things, or that I was being dramatic, or... I'm not like everyone else. She looked at him, really looked at him. No, she said slowly. I'm starting to think you're not. Sebastian stepped back, giving her space. His mind was racing, pieces clicking together. The engagement can't be broken publicly, he said. Not yet. If your father hears you're here, if he suspects what you've told me, he'll come for me. Vivian nodded. I know. We have 5 days before anyone can reach us. 5 days to figure out what to do. Sebastian moved back to his desk, his thoughts organizing themselves. I have allies in London. People who would believe these letters, who have the power to investigate quietly. If we can get word to them, the river is impassable. But not forever. The moment the water drops enough, I can send a rider. He looked at her. Can you hold on for 5 more days? Vivian's chin lifted. I've held on for 23 years. I can manage 5 more days. Something that might have been admiration flickered in Sebastian's chest. Good. Then we use the time. You'll stay in the Rose Room. It has a lock, and Mrs. Duncan will keep watch. I'll review these letters, make copies of my own, start drafting messages to send the moment it's possible. He paused. And Vivian? Yes? You're safe here. Whatever else happens, whatever we decide about the engagement, no one is going to hurt you in my house. She stared at him for a long moment. Her eyes glistened. Why are you doing this? She whispered. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. This could destroy your reputation, your political alliances, everything your family worked for. Because it's the right thing to do. That's it? Just the right thing? Sebastian thought about his mother, her kindness, her quiet strength, the way she'd taught him that power meant nothing if you didn't use it to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. That's everything, he said. Vivian was quiet for a long time. Then, slowly, she extended her hand. 5 days, she said. Sebastian took it. Her fingers were cold, her grip surprisingly strong. 5 days. Mrs. Duncan appeared in the doorway, her eyes narrowing as she took in the scene. The scattered letters on the desk, Vivian's red-rimmed eyes, the tension crackling between them. Lunch is ready, she announced, and you'll both eat every bite, or I'll know the reason why. Vivian almost smiled. Yes, ma'am. That's more like it. The housekeeper's gaze softened, just slightly. Come along, miss. We've got a proper meal waiting, and afterward, I thought you might like to see the gardens. There's a greenhouse on the east side that's been closed up for ages, but it's still standing. Might be nice to have a look, if you're interested in that sort of thing. A greenhouse? Something flickered in Vivian's expression, the first hint of genuine interest Sebastian had seen. I'd like that. Thank you. Good. His Grace can join us when he's finished brooding. Mrs. Duncan shot Sebastian a pointed look. Don't take too long. The soup's getting cold. They left, and Sebastian was alone with the letters spread across his desk. He read them again, then again. Each time the meaning was clearer, the plan more obvious, the danger more real. The Earl of Hartley was going to murder his own daughter, and Sebastian had 5 days to stop him. The greenhouse was exactly as Mrs. Duncan had described, closed up, neglected, but still standing. Sebastian found Vivian there an hour later, standing in a shaft of pale winter light, her fingers resting on a dusty workbench. She'd found his mother's botanical sketches, a stack of yellowed papers covered in careful drawings of flowers and plants. Your mother did these? Yes. Sebastian moved to stand beside her. She loved this place. Spent hours here, cataloging every plant, studying how they grew. They're beautiful. Vivian traced the edge of a drawing, a detailed study of a rose, each petal rendered with scientific precision. My mother painted, too, before she married. She was talented, really talented. She gave it all up because my father said it was unseemly. What about you? Vivian was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small leather-bound sketchbook. "I draw buildings," she said. "Architecture. I've been studying on my own for years, reading every book I could find, sketching everything I see." She opened the book, revealing page after page of detailed drawings. Churches, bridges, grand houses, every line precise, every shadow perfectly placed. "There's a woman in Paris who teaches architecture, Marie Fontaine. She's one of the only people who will train women. I wrote to her last year, and she said—" She stopped. "She said what?" "She said I had talent." Vivian's voice cracked. "Real talent. That if I could come to Paris, she'd take me on as a student." She closed the book. "My father burned her letter. Told me if I mentioned it again, he'd lock me in my room until the wedding." Sebastian looked at the sketches, at the skill evident in every line, at the dreams being crushed by a man who saw his daughter as property. "What if you could go?" Vivian laughed. "To Paris? How? I have no money. No—" "What if that changed?" She went still. "What are you saying?" Sebastian wasn't sure himself. The words were coming before he could think them through, driven by something he couldn't name. "The engagement will have to be broken eventually. If your father is exposed, the scandal will be immense. You'll need to be far away, building a new life. Paris would be perfect." He met her eyes. "I could arrange it. The travel, the funds, a fresh start." Vivian stared at him. "You'd do that? For someone you just met?" "I'd do it for someone who deserves a chance to live." The greenhouse was silent, except for the rain drumming on the glass roof. Vivian's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. Instead, she squared her shoulders and lifted her chin. "I don't want charity." "It's not charity, it's—" Sebastian searched for the right word. "Justice." She studied him for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression, the wariness fading, replaced by something softer. "You really aren't like anyone I've ever met. Is that good or bad?" "I haven't decided yet." But she was almost smiling. "Ask me again in 5 days." Sebastian found himself smiling back. "I will." That night, Sebastian sat alone in his study, the letters spread before him, the fire burning low. He thought about Vivian, about her courage, her determination, the way she'd ridden through a storm, nearly died, and still managed to stand in his study and demand her freedom. He thought about her father, the charming smile, the firm handshake, the monster hiding behind the mask. He thought about the 5 days stretching ahead of them, what they might discover, what they might become. And for the first time in years, Sebastian Blackwood felt something he'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. The first morning, Vivian refused to come down for breakfast. Sebastian stood outside the Rose Room door, listening to Mrs. Duncan's gentle knocking, her coaxing voice. "Miss Hartley, you need to eat. You can't hide in there forever." "I'm not hiding." Vivian's voice was muffled through the wood. "I'm thinking." "You can think with food in your stomach." "I think better when I'm alone." Mrs. Duncan turned to Sebastian, her expression torn between frustration and concern. "She's been like this since dawn. Won't open the door. Won't let me in." Sebastian stepped forward. "Let me try." He knocked once. Twice. "Go away." "It's Sebastian." A pause. Then, "Go away, Sebastian." "Open the door." "No." "Vivian, I said no." He leaned his forehead against the wood, dropping his voice. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to force you to do anything. But if you don't eat, you'll make yourself sick, and then you won't be able to fight. Is that what you want?" Silence. Then, slowly, The lock clicked. The door opened a crack. One green eye peered out at him. "I had a nightmare," she said quietly. "About my father. About what happens if this doesn't work." Sebastian's chest tightened. "What happens in the nightmare?" "He finds me. He takes me back. And you—" She stopped, swallowed. "You decide it's not worth the trouble. You let him." "That's not going to happen. You don't know that." "Yes, I do." He held her gaze through the crack in the door. "Because I'm not the kind of man who lets monsters win. And neither are you." Vivian stared at him for a long moment. Then the door opened wider. She looked terrible, pale, exhausted, her hair tangled from a sleepless night. But her chin was lifted, and her eyes were dry. "Fine," she said. "But if you're going to make me eat, at least tell me there's tea." "There's tea." "Strong tea?" "Mrs. Duncan doesn't make any other kind." Something that might have been a smile flickered across Vivian's face. "Then I suppose I can manage." They walked down to breakfast together, and Sebastian tried not to notice how close she stayed to his side. Like she was afraid to let him out of her sight. Like he was the only thing standing between her and the dark. Breakfast was quiet. Vivian picked at her food, eating small bites while Sebastian pretended not to watch her. Mrs. Duncan hovered nearby, refilling teacups and making pointed comments about young women who didn't take care of themselves. "You'll waste away," the housekeeper muttered. "Nothing but skin and bones already. I've always been thin." "Thin is one thing, starving yourself is another." Vivian set down her fork. "I'm not starving myself. I'm just not hungry." "You're scared." Mrs. Duncan's voice softened. "Fear kills the appetite. I know. I've seen it before." Vivian looked up sharply. "Seen what before?" The housekeeper hesitated, glanced at Sebastian. "Tell her," he said. Mrs. Duncan sighed and pulled out a chair, sitting down across from Vivian. "My sister married a man like your father. Charming on the outside, cruel behind closed doors. She came to me once, in the middle of the night, with a black eye and a broken rib. Told me she'd fallen." Vivian's face went pale. "I believed her," Mrs. Duncan continued, "because I wanted to. Because it was easier than facing the truth. And 6 months later, she was dead." The older woman's voice hardened. "I've spent 30 years regretting that I didn't do more, that I didn't fight harder, that I didn't drag her out of that house, and damn the consequences." "I'm sorry," Vivian whispered. "Don't be sorry. Be smart." Mrs. Duncan reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You got out. You found someone willing to help. That's more than my sister ever had. Don't waste it." Vivian's eyes glistened. She nodded once, then picked up her fork again. She ate every bite on her plate. After breakfast, Sebastian took Vivian to his study. "We need to plan," he said, spreading a map across the desk. "The moment the river drops enough to send a rider, I need to know exactly where to send them and what to say." Vivian studied the map. "Who do you trust?" "Lord Ashworth. He's an old friend of my father's, honest, powerful, and he despises corruption. If anyone can investigate your father quietly, it's him. And if he doesn't believe you?" "He will." Sebastian pulled out the copied letters. "This is evidence, real evidence. Combined with your testimony and whatever else we can gather in the next few days, it should be enough to launch an investigation." Vivian was quiet for a moment. "What if it's not?" "Then we find another way." "There might not be another way." Sebastian looked up at her. She was standing very still, her arms wrapped around herself, her face carefully blank. "There's always another way," he said. "I'm not going to let you give up." I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic. Realistic is planning for success and failure simultaneously. Giving up is assuming failure before we've even tried. He crossed to stand in front of her. Which one are you doing? Vivian's jaw tightened. I've been fighting alone for so long. It's hard to believe anyone actually wants to help. I want to help. Why? The question hung between them. Sebastian could have given her a practical answer, because it was right, because her father was dangerous, because the alliance needed to be broken anyway. Instead, he told her the truth. Because you remind me of someone I used to be. Vivian's eyes widened. What do you mean? When my father died, I was 22. Suddenly responsible for an entire estate, hundreds of people depending on me, and a mother who was slowly fading from grief. He turned away, moving to the window. I felt trapped, overwhelmed, like my entire life had been decided for me without anyone asking what I wanted. What did you want? I don't know. I never let myself find out. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I did what was expected, managed the estate, maintained the alliances, became exactly the duke my father wanted me to be. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that I was supposed to be anything else. Vivian moved to stand beside him. That's why you agreed to help me. Partly. What's the other part? Sebastian looked at her. She was close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her green eyes, the faint freckles across her nose, the way her lips parted slightly when she was waiting for an answer. I think, he said slowly, that you might be the most interesting person I've ever met. Vivian blinked. Interesting? You rode through a storm that killed people. You nearly drowned crossing a bridge that was actively collapsing. You showed up at a stranger's house with nothing but the clothes on your back and demanded he help you destroy his own engagement. Sebastian shook his head. Most people would have given up a dozen times over. You didn't. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. You chose to fight. He held her gaze. That's not nothing, Vivian. That's everything. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, so softly he almost didn't hear it. No one's ever said anything like that to me before. Then everyone you've ever known was blind. Something shifted in her expression. A crack in the armor. A glimpse of the woman underneath. Vulnerable. Hopeful. Terrified. Sebastian. A knock at the door interrupted them. Your Grace? Mrs. Duncan's voice came through the wood. The groundskeeper says the south field is flooding. He needs you immediately. Sebastian stepped back, the moment shattering. I'll be right there. He looked at Vivian. Will you be all right alone? I've been alone my whole life. But she smiled, just slightly. I can manage a few hours. He wanted to say something else, something that would capture what had just passed between them, the understanding that had sparked to life in the space of a few heartbeats. But Mrs. Duncan knocked again, and the moment was gone. I'll find you when I get back, he said. I'll be here. Sebastian left, and Vivian stood alone in the study, her heart pounding, her thoughts racing. She'd come here expecting a villain, a cold, calculating man who would see her as nothing more than a political asset. Someone she could hate, someone she could fight, someone who would make the choice to run easy. Instead, she'd found Sebastian Blackwood, and she had absolutely no idea what to do about it. The afternoon passed slowly. Vivian explored the manor, restless and uncertain. She found the library first, a massive room lined with books from floor to ceiling, the kind of collection that would take a lifetime to read. She pulled out a volume at random, Architecture of the Ancient World. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Her father would never have allowed this, would never have let her read anything that fed her dreams, her ambitions, her sense of self. He'd burned every book she'd hidden, destroyed every sketch she'd made, told her over and over that she was nothing, would always be nothing, existed only to serve his purposes. And she'd believed him. For years, she'd believed him. But sitting here, in this beautiful room, surrounded by knowledge that was hers for the taking, she felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Free. "Miss Hartley?" She looked up. Mrs. Duncan stood in the doorway, a tea tray in her hands. "I thought you might like some refreshment." "Thank you." Vivian closed the book. "You don't have to keep checking on me." "I'm not checking on you. I'm being hospitable." The housekeeper set down the tray. "There's a difference." "Is there?" Mrs. Duncan smiled. "His Grace asked me to make sure you had everything you needed. That's hospitality. If I were checking on you, I'd be asking uncomfortable questions about your feelings and your past, and whether you've developed any inappropriate attachments to handsome young dukes." Vivian choked on her tea. "I see I've hit a nerve," Mrs. Duncan said placidly. It's not like that." "Of course not." The housekeeper's eyes twinkled. "You've only known each other for 2 days. Far too soon for anything inappropriate." "Exactly. Although, I will say, I've never seen His Grace look at anyone the way he looks at you." Vivian's heart stuttered. "What way?" "Like you're the first interesting thing that's happened to him in years." Mrs. Duncan picked up an empty cup. "His Grace is a good man, Miss Hartley, but he's been lonely for a very long time. Buried himself in duty and responsibility until there was nothing left of the boy he used to be." "What was he like before?" "Curious, adventurous, always asking questions, always wanting to learn." Mrs. Duncan's voice softened. "His father didn't approve. Said a duke should be dignified, reserved, above such things. Sebastian tried to be what his father wanted, and eventually he succeeded." She shook her head. "Sometimes I think that was the real tragedy. Not losing his parents, but losing himself." Vivian thought about what Sebastian had said in the study, about forgetting who he was supposed to be, about becoming exactly what was expected. "He seems different now," she said quietly. "With me, I mean. More alive." "He is," Mrs. Duncan met her eyes. "You woke something up in him, Miss Hartley. I don't know what it is, and I don't know where it leads. But I haven't seen him smile this much in years." Vivian didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. But when Mrs. Duncan left, she sat alone in the library for a long time, thinking about lonely dukes and awakened hearts, and the terrifying possibility that she might be feeling something she couldn't afford to feel. Sebastian found her there just before dinner. "The south field is secure," he said, dropping into the chair across from her. "Barely. We lost about an acre of crops, but it could have been worse." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It's not your fault the weather is trying to drown my estate." He leaned back, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. "What have you been doing?" "Reading." Vivian held up the architecture book. "You have an impressive collection." "My mother's mostly. She loved books. Said they were the only way to travel without leaving home." His expression softened. "She would have liked you." "You think so?" "I know so. She had a thing for stubborn women who refused to accept the world as it was." He smiled. She was one herself. Vivian set down the book. "Tell me about her." So he did. He told her about his mother's laugh, bright and infectious. About her gardens, wild and colorful and completely improper for a duchess. About the way she'd sneak into his room at night to read him adventure stories his father had forbidden, her voice dropping to a whisper during the exciting parts. He told her about watching his mother fade after his father's death. The way the light had gone out of her eyes, a little more each day, until there was nothing left but a shell. He'd tried everything, doctors, specialists, trips abroad, but nothing worked. She'd simply stopped wanting to live. "She died in her sleep," Sebastian said quietly. "The physician said her heart gave out. But I think the truth was simpler. She'd lost the person she loved most, and she couldn't see the point in continuing without him." Vivian reached across the space between them and took his hand. He looked down at their intertwined fingers, then up at her face. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know that doesn't help, but I'm sorry." "It does help." His voice was rough. "More than you know." They sat like that for a long moment, hands clasped, something unspoken flowing between them. Then Sebastian cleared his throat and gently pulled away. "Dinner will be ready soon. We should probably—" "Sebastian." He stopped. Vivian stood, closing the distance between them until they were inches apart. "Thank you," she said, "for telling me about her. For trusting me with that. You trusted me first, with your letters, your story, your life." He looked down at her. "It seemed only fair." "Life isn't fair." "No, it's not." He reached up, hesitated, then gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "But sometimes we get lucky anyway." Vivian's breath caught. She should step back, should remember why she was here, what was at stake, how dangerous it was to feel anything for anyone. She'd come to escape one cage, not walk willingly into another. But Sebastian wasn't a cage. He was an open door, a possibility, a future she'd never let herself imagine. "Sebastian," she whispered. "Yes?" "I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of everything," her voice cracked. "Of my father. Of what happens next. Of—" She stopped. "Of me?" "No," she shook her head. "Of how I feel about you." The words hung in the air between them. Sebastian went very still. "How do you feel about me?" Vivian laughed, a broken sound. "I don't know. I've known you for 2 days. That's not enough time to feel anything real." "Isn't it?" She looked up at him. His eyes were dark, intense, fixed on her face with an expression she couldn't read. "It took me about 5 minutes to know that you were different," he said quietly. "That you weren't like anyone I'd ever met. That I wanted to know more, to understand more, to see who you became when you weren't afraid anymore. And now? Now I'm scared too." He smiled, but it was fragile. "Because I'm starting to think that 5 days won't be enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to figure out how to let you go." Vivian's heart stopped. She should say something, should remind him that she was supposed to leave, that Paris was waiting, that she had a life to build, far away from England and arranged marriages and everything that had trapped her. But looking at him now, this man who'd listened when no one else would, who'd believed her without question, who'd offered her hope when she'd forgotten what it felt like, she couldn't remember why leaving had seemed so important. "Sebastian." The dinner bell rang. They both jumped. "We should go," Sebastian said roughly. "Yes." Neither of them moved. "Vivian." "Yes?" "Whatever happens, whatever we decide, I want you to know that meeting you was the best thing that's happened to me in a very long time." She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only nod, her eyes burning with tears she refused to shed. He offered her his arm. She took it, and together they walked to dinner, neither of them ready to face what they were beginning to feel, or what it might cost them to feel it. The third day started with a lie. Sebastian told himself he was reviewing the bridge repair estimates when Vivian walked into his study. He told himself his heart didn't skip when she smiled. He told himself the ache in his chest was nothing, just exhaustion, just stress, just the weight of everything they were carrying. But when she sat down across from him, her eyes bright, her hair loose around her shoulders, he knew the truth. He was falling for her. Fast. Dangerously. Irrevocably. And he had no idea what to do about it. "You're staring," Vivian said. "Sorry." "Don't be." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've been staring at you too." Sebastian's mouth went dry. "Vivian, I know. We shouldn't. There's too much at stake, too many complications, too many reasons why this is a terrible idea." She leaned forward. "But I spent 23 years doing what I should, being who I should, feeling what I should, and it nearly killed me." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I don't want to pretend anymore." Her voice was steady, but her hands were trembling. "I don't want to act like you're just someone helping me escape. I don't want to lie about what's happening between us." "And what is happening between us?" She held his gaze. "I don't know, but I want to find out." Sebastian stood, moved around the desk, stopped in front of her, close enough to touch. "This is complicated," he said. "Everything is complicated." "If your father finds out—" "He won't. If he does, then we'll deal with it." Vivian stood, bringing them face to face. Together. The word hung between them. Together. Such a simple thing. Such an impossible thing. Sebastian reached out and cupped her face in his hands. She didn't flinch, didn't pull away, just looked at him with those green eyes that had haunted his dreams since the moment she'd opened them in his study. "I should send you away," he whispered, "for your own good, for both our sakes." "But you won't." "No." He leaned his forehead against hers. "I won't." He kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful. It was desperate and hungry and full of everything they'd been holding back, fear and hope and longing and the terrifying certainty that nothing would ever be the same. Vivian's hands fisted in his shirt. She pulled him closer, kissing him back with equal ferocity, and Sebastian felt something crack open inside him. Something that had been locked away for years, buried under duty and expectation and the weight of being exactly who everyone needed him to be. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "That was—" Vivian started. "Yeah. We should probably—" "Yeah." Neither of them moved. "Sebastian." "Yes?" "If this doesn't work, if my father wins, if everything falls apart, I want you to know that these past 3 days have been the best of my life." His heart clenched. "Don't talk like that." "I have to, because I've learned the hard way that good things don't last." Her voice cracked. "And you're the best thing that's ever happened to me." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. She fit perfectly there, like she'd been made for exactly this space. "I'm not going to let anything happen to you," he said into her hair. "I swear it." "You can't promise that." "Watch me." The moment shattered when Mrs. Duncan burst through the door. "Your Grace!" Her face was white. "There's a rider coming from the village. The bridge. The temporary repairs. They're saying someone crossed this morning." Sebastian's blood turned to ice. "Who?" "They don't know yet. But whoever it is, they'll be here within the hour." Vivian went rigid in his arms. "It's him." "You don't know that." "I know." She pulled back, and he saw the terror flooding her face. "He found out. Someone told him where I was, and he came for me." "Vivian, listen to me." "I have to run." She was already moving toward the door. "I have to hide. If he finds me here—" Sebastian caught her arm. "You're not running anywhere." "You don't understand. He'll kill me. He'll take me back and make it look like an accident, just like my mother." He's not going to touch you. Sebastian's voice was steel. Not while I'm breathing.
You can't stop him. No one can stop him. He's too powerful, too connected.
I'm the Duke of Wintermoor. He gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. My family has held this land for 300 years. I have allies in Parliament, friends at court, and enough influence to make any man's life very, very difficult. His jaw hardened. Your father may be powerful, but he's not invincible, and he's certainly not welcome in my home. Vivian stared at him.
You'd really stand against him? For me?
I'd stand against anyone for you. Something shifted in her expression. The panic didn't disappear, but something else joined it. Trust. Fragile, terrified, but real.
What do we do?
We face him together. Sebastian released her shoulders.
Mrs. Duncan, prepare the drawing room. If Lord Hartley is coming, we'll receive him properly. Your Grace, and send word to the stables. I want every groom armed and watching. If anything seems wrong, I want to know immediately. Mrs. Duncan nodded and hurried away. Vivian was still pale, her hands shaking, but she squared her shoulders. I should change, put on something more appropriate. You look fine. I look like a woman who's been hiding, her chin lifted. When he walks through that door, I want him to see someone who's not afraid of him anymore. Sebastian smiled despite everything. There she is. There who is? The woman who rode through a storm and demanded I help her. The woman who refused to give up even when the world told her she should. He took her hand. That's who you are, Vivian. Don't forget it. She squeezed his fingers. I won't. 40 minutes later, Lord Hartley's carriage rolled up the drive. Sebastian watched from the window, his jaw tight, his fists clenched at his sides. Vivian stood beside him, close but not touching, her face carefully blank. Remember, Sebastian said quietly, he has no power here. This is my home, my territory. Whatever he says, whatever he does, he can't take you without your consent. Legally, he can. I'm unmarried, under his guardianship. Then we change the legal situation. Vivian turned to look at him. What do you mean? Before Sebastian could answer, the front door opened. Lord Hartley swept into the manor like he owned it. He was exactly as Vivian had described, tall, distinguished, with silver hair and a smile that could charm anyone. His clothes were impeccable, his manner confident, his entire bearing radiating authority and control. Northmoor! He strode forward, hand extended. Thank God! I came as soon as I heard about the bridge collapse. When I learned my daughter was trapped here... Lord Hartley. Sebastian did not take the offered hand. You came quickly. The Earl's smile flickered, just slightly. Of course I did. Vivian is my only child. When I received word she was here, I was beside myself with worry. Were you? Naturally. Hartley's eyes scanned the room, landing on Vivian. His expression softened into something that looked almost like relief. There you are, my dear. Thank heavens you're safe. Vivian didn't move. Father, come here. Let me look at you. He opened his arms. I've been so worried. Have you? The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Hartley's smile didn't waver, but something shifted behind his eyes. What's wrong, darling? You seem upset. I'm fine. You don't look fine. You look... He glanced at Sebastian. Has something happened? Has someone upset you? No one has upset me. Then why won't you come to me? He took a step forward. Vivian, I've traveled through dangerous conditions to reach you. The least you can do is greet your father properly. Sebastian moved to stand beside Vivian. Perhaps we should all sit down. Discuss this calmly. Discuss what? Hartley's voice hardened. I've come to collect my daughter. There's nothing to discuss.
Actually, there is.
And what would that be? Sebastian met the Earl's eyes.
The engagement.
Silence. Hartley's smile finally cracked. What about the engagement?
I'm breaking it.
The words landed like a bomb. Vivian's head whipped toward Sebastian, her eyes wide. Even Mrs. Duncan, hovering near the door, gasped.
Breaking it?
Hartley's voice was deadly quiet.
On what grounds?
On the grounds that I've discovered information that makes this alliance impossible. Sebastian's voice was steady. Information about your treatment of your late wife, your plans for your daughter, the letters discussing accidents and inheritance law. All color drained from Hartley's face. I don't know what you're talking about.
I have copies.
Sebastian pulled the papers from his pocket. Copies of correspondence between you and your solicitor, discussing how to access Vivian's inheritance after her death, exploring what kinds of accidents are difficult to investigate. He held them up. Would you like to see them? Hartley's mask shattered. His face twisted into something ugly. Rage and fear and hatred all mixed together. He lunged toward the papers, but Sebastian stepped back, keeping them out of reach. Those are forgeries, Hartley snarled. Lies created by a desperate girl who wants to escape her duties.
Are they?
My daughter is unstable, delusional. She's been making accusations for years.
Your daughter, Sebastian said coldly, is the bravest person I've ever met.
She rode through a storm that killed people. She nearly drowned crossing a collapsing bridge. She came to a stranger's house with nothing but the clothes on her back and the evidence of your crimes.
And she did it because she knew that staying with you meant death.
This is absurd.
Is it? Then explain the letters.
I told you, they're forgeries.
Then you won't mind if I send them to Lord Ashworth for verification?
Sebastian smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. He has experts who can analyze handwriting, confirm the authenticity of documents. If they're forgeries, as you claim, you have nothing to worry about. Hartley's eyes darted to Vivian. You did this. You manipulated him.
I told him the truth.
The truth, Hartley laughed, a harsh sound. The truth is that you're an ungrateful child who's always been a disappointment. Your mother coddled you, let you develop ridiculous ideas about your place in the world. And now you've poisoned your own engagement with lies.
I haven't lied about anything.
You've lied your entire life, Hartley's voice rose. Always pretending to be something you're not. An artist, a scholar, a woman of substance, he sneered.
You're nothing, Vivian. You've always been nothing. The only value you have is the alliance this marriage would bring.
Sebastian stepped forward. Get out.
Hartley turned to him. Excuse me?
Get out of my house. Sebastian's voice was ice. You've insulted your daughter, threatened her safety, and demonstrated exactly the kind of man the letters describe. I will not have you under my roof a moment longer.
You can't throw me out. I'm an earl. I have rights.
You have nothing. Sebastian moved closer, and for the first time, Hartley took a step back. This is my estate, my territory, and you are not welcome here. Vivian is coming with me. No, she's not.
She's my daughter. I have legal authority.
Not anymore. Sebastian turned to Vivian. I'm asking you again. Will you marry me? Vivian's mouth fell open.
What?
Marry me. Today. Right now. The moment we're wed, your father loses all legal claim to you.
You become my wife, under my protection, beyond his reach.
He took her hand. I know this isn't how it should happen. I know you deserve a proper proposal, a choice made without fear. But I'm asking anyway. Vivian Hartley, will you marry me? Tears streamed down her face.
You would do that? Bind yourself to me forever, just to save me from him?
I would do anything to save you from him. Sebastian's voice cracked. And it's not just to save you. I want to marry you. I've wanted it since the moment you opened your eyes in my study and demanded I help you. I just didn't know how to say it.
Sebastian,
You don't have to love me back. You don't have to stay with me if you don't want to. But let me give you this. Let me give you freedom. Vivian looked at her father. He was purple with rage, his fists clenched, his body vibrating with barely contained violence. Then she looked at Sebastian, at the man who'd believed her when no one else would, who'd held her while she cried, who'd kissed her like she was precious, like she was worth fighting for, like she mattered.
yes,
She whispered. Sebastian's face transformed. Yes?
yes,
She laughed through her tears.
yes, I'll marry you.
No! Hartley lunged forward, but Mrs. Duncan was faster. She stepped into his path, and 2 footmen materialized behind her, blocking his way. Lord Hartley, Sebastian said calmly, I suggest you leave before I have you forcibly removed. You can't do this! The bans haven't been read! The license! I have a special license. My mother kept one, in case of emergencies. Sebastian smiled. I'd say this qualifies. This is illegal! Coercion! I'll have this marriage annulled. Try. Sebastian's voice dropped to something dangerous. Try to annul my marriage, and I'll release these letters to every newspaper in London. I'll testify before Parliament about what you did to your wife. I'll destroy your reputation so thoroughly that you won't be able to show your face in society for the rest of your miserable life. Hartley went still. You wouldn't dare. Test me. The silence stretched. Father and Duke, staring each other down, neither willing to blink. Finally, Hartley smiled. It was the coldest smile Vivian had ever seen. You've made a powerful enemy today, Northmore. I've survived enemies before. Not like me. Hartley straightened his coat. Enjoy your bride while you can. This isn't over. He turned and walked out, his footsteps echoing through the hall. The front door slammed behind him. Vivian's knees gave out. Sebastian caught her before she hit the floor, holding her against his chest, stroking her hair while she shook. It's over, he murmured. He's gone. He'll come back. He always comes back. Let him. Sebastian tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. I meant what I said. Every word. I'll protect you until my dying breath. You don't have to do this. The marriage, it was just to save me. I understand if you want to. I want to marry you, he cut her off. Not because of your father, not because of the letters, because you're the most extraordinary person I've ever met, and I can't imagine my life without you in it. Sebastian, tell me you don't feel the same. Tell me these past 3 days meant nothing. Tell me, and I'll let you go. I'll help you get to Paris, fund your studies, never ask anything of you again. Vivian reached up and touched his face. I can't tell you that, she whispered, because it would be a lie. He kissed her again, softer this time, a promise instead of a confession. When they broke apart, Mrs. Duncan was crying quietly by the door. Well, the housekeeper said, dabbing at her eyes, I suppose we have a wedding to plan. They married that evening. The ceremony was nothing like what either of them had imagined. No grand cathedral, no hundreds of guests, no weeks of preparation and fittings and rehearsals. Just a small chapel on the estate grounds, lit by candlelight, with Mrs. Duncan and the household staff as witnesses. Vivian wore a simple white dress that Mrs. Duncan had altered in 3 frantic hours. Her hands shook as she walked down the aisle. Her voice trembled when she spoke her vows. But when Sebastian slipped the ring onto her finger, his mother's ring, a delicate band of gold and emeralds, she looked up at him and smiled. And Sebastian knew, with absolute certainty, that he'd made the right choice. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the vicar said. "You may kiss the bride." Sebastian cupped her face in his hands. "Hello, wife."
"Hello, husband."
He kissed her, soft and slow, and somewhere behind them Mrs. Duncan burst into noisy tears. The wedding dinner was quiet, just the two of them in the small dining room, candles flickering, wine untouched. Vivian hadn't eaten more than a few bites. "You're worried," Sebastian said, "aren't you?" "About your father?" "Yes." He reached across the table and took her hand. "But not about us." "How can you be so calm? He threatened you. He said this wasn't over." "And it probably isn't. But whatever he does next, we'll face it together." Sebastian squeezed her fingers. "That's what marriage means, Vivian. You're not alone anymore." Her eyes glistened. "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "Trust someone. Rely on someone. Let someone take care of me." She laughed, but it was fragile. "I've been fighting alone for so long. It's all I know." "Then let me teach you something new." He stood, pulling her to her feet. She came willingly, letting him wrap his arms around her, resting her head against his chest. "I know this isn't how you wanted things to happen," he murmured into her hair. "I know you wanted Paris, freedom, a life you chose for yourself." "Sebastian, let me finish." He pulled back, meeting her eyes. "I meant what I said before. If you want to go to Paris, I'll take you. If you want to study with Marie Fontaine, I'll make it happen. This marriage doesn't have to be a cage, Vivian. I won't let it be." "You'd really do that? Let your wife live in another country?" "I'd rather have a happy wife in Paris than a miserable one in England," he smiled. "Besides, I've always wanted to see France." "You'd come with me?" "If you'd have me." Vivian stared at him. This man who had turned her world upside down in less than a week, who had believed her when no one else would, who had married her to save her life, and was now offering to upend his own just to make her happy. "I don't deserve you," she whispered. "You deserve everything." He kissed her forehead. "And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you get it." That night, they didn't consummate the marriage. Sebastian had offered her a separate bedroom, had made it clear that he expected nothing, that she could take all the time she needed. But Vivian had looked at him with those green eyes and said, "I don't want to be alone tonight." So they lay together in his bed, fully clothed, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. They talked until the candles burned down, about their childhoods, their fears, their dreams, everything they'd never told anyone else. Vivian told him about the night her mother died, how she'd heard the arguing through the walls, the crash, the terrible silence that followed. How she'd found her mother at the bottom of the stairs, her neck twisted at an impossible angle, her eyes still open. "I knew," Vivian whispered. "I knew it wasn't an accident. But I was 16 years old and terrified and alone. And when my father told the physician she'd fallen, I didn't contradict him." "You were a child." "I was a coward." "You were surviving." Sebastian tightened his hold on her. "There's no shame in that. I've carried it with me every day since. The guilt, the what-ifs. What if I'd spoken up? What if I'd told someone the truth?" "Then your father would have destroyed you, just like he tried to destroy your mother." Sebastian's voice hardened. "The only person responsible for her death is him. Not you. Never you." Vivian was quiet for a long moment. Then, so softly he almost didn't hear it, "I think I've been waiting my whole life for someone to say that." "Then I'll say it every day until you believe it." She turned in his arms, looking up at him in the darkness. "Sebastian." "Yes?" "Thank you. For everything." He kissed her, gentle, reverent, a promise sealed in the space between heartbeats. Always. The next 3 days were the happiest of Vivian's life. She and Sebastian fell into an easy rhythm. Mornings in the greenhouse, tending the plants his mother had loved. Afternoons in the library, reading side by side, occasionally stopping to debate a passage or share a discovery. Evenings in the study, planning for the future, Paris, the investigation into her father, the life they would build together. And at night, they lay tangled in each other's arms, learning each other in ways that went far beyond the physical. Vivian had never known it could be like this. She'd grown up watching her parents' marriage, the violence, the fear, the careful performance of affection that masked something rotten underneath. She'd assumed all marriages were prisons, that love was just another word for control. But Sebastian was different. He asked her opinion, listened when she spoke, changed his mind when she made a good argument. He treated her like a partner, an equal, a person whose thoughts and feelings actually mattered. It was revolutionary. It was terrifying. It was everything she'd never dared to hope for.
"You're staring again," Sebastian said on the fourth morning, looking up from his correspondence. "I'm memorizing." "Memorizing what?" "You," Vivian smiled, "in case this turns out to be a dream." "It's not a dream." "How do you know?" He crossed the room and kissed her, deep and thorough, until her knees went weak. "Does that feel like a dream?" "No," she was breathless. "That feels very, very real." "Good." He pulled back, grinning. "Now stop distracting me. I'm trying to write a letter to Lord Ashworth." "About my father?" "About the investigation. The letters have been authenticated. Ashworth is assembling a committee to review the evidence." Sebastian's expression sobered. "It's happening, Vivian. Your father is going to face justice." She should have felt relieved, triumphant even, but all she felt was cold. "He won't go quietly." "I know." "He'll fight back, try to discredit me, destroy our reputations." "Probably." "And you're not worried?" Sebastian set down his pen. "I'm terrified, but not of him." He took her hand. "I'm terrified of losing you, of failing you, of not being strong enough to protect you from whatever comes next." "You won't fail me." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." Vivian squeezed his fingers. "Because you're the only person who's ever tried." The attack came that night. Vivian was asleep when she heard the crash. She bolted upright, her heart pounding, her body already moving toward the door. Sebastian caught her arm. "Stay here." "What was that?" "I don't know." He was already pulling on his boots, grabbing the pistol he kept by the bed. "Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Mrs. Duncan." "Sebastian, promise me." "I promise." He kissed her, hard and fast, then disappeared into the hallway. Vivian locked the door with shaking hands, pressed her ear against the wood, listened. Voices, shouting, the sound of breaking glass, then a gunshot. She screamed, "Sebastian!" No answer. "Sebastian!" She fumbled with the lock, yanking the door open, running toward the sound of chaos. She didn't care about the promise, didn't care about the danger. All she cared about was finding him, making sure he was alive, making sure. She rounded the corner and stopped. Sebastian stood in the entrance hall, the pistol still smoking in his hand. At his feet, a man lay motionless, blood pooling beneath him. "Sebastian!" He looked up. His face was pale, his hands shaking. But he was alive, unhurt. "It's over," he said. "He's dead." Vivian looked at the body, recognized the face. That's my father's man, his personal guard." "I know." Sebastian's voice was hollow. He came through the window with a knife. Said your father sent him to finish what he started.
To kill me.
To kill us both. Sebastian set down the pistol. I didn't have a choice. He wouldn't stop. He was going to... He couldn't finish.
Vivian crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him. He was trembling. This man who had been so strong, so confident, so certain. He was shaking like a leaf. "You saved us," she whispered. "I killed a man." "You protected your wife, your home, your life."
She pulled back, cupping his face.
"That's not murder, Sebastian. That's survival."
I've never... He swallowed hard. I've never killed anyone before.
I know.
I can still feel it. The way the gun kicked. The way he looked at me when he fell.
I know.
How do you know?
Because I've spent my whole life watching violence.
Vivian's voice broke.
And I know it changes you. Even when it's justified. Even when you had no choice.
Sebastian pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry you had to grow up like that.
I'm sorry you have to learn what it feels like now.
They stood there in the entrance hall, holding each other, while Mrs. Duncan arrived and took charge, sending servants to deal with the body, the blood, the shattered window. Neither Sebastian nor Vivian moved. They didn't need to. They had each other, and right now, that was enough. The investigation moved quickly after that. Lord Ashworth took the attack as confirmation of everything Vivian had claimed. The dead assassin was identified as a known criminal with ties to Lord Hartley. Combined with the letters and Vivian's testimony, it was enough to launch a formal inquiry. Within 2 weeks, the Earl of Hartley was arrested. Vivian heard the news while she was working in the greenhouse, transplanting seedlings her mother-in-law had started years ago. Sebastian found her there, a letter clutched in his hand, his face alight with something she'd never seen before. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. It's done, he said. He's been taken into custody. The trial starts next month. Vivian set down her trowel. Truly? Truly. Sebastian crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. He can't hurt you anymore, Vivian. It's over. She wanted to believe him, wanted to let go of the fear she'd carried for 23 years and simply exist in this moment of triumph. But the fear was still there, coiled in her chest like a snake, waiting. What if he gets out? What if the trial fails? What if... Then we'll fight again. Sebastian held her face in his hands. As many times as it takes, for as long as it takes. I'm not going anywhere. You mean that? I married you, didn't I? She laughed. It surprised her, bubbling up from somewhere deep, somewhere she'd forgotten existed. You did. And I'd do it again, tomorrow, every day for the rest of my life. That's very romantic. I'm a very romantic person. Since when? Since I met you. He kissed her nose. You've corrupted me entirely. Good. Vivian wrapped her arms around his neck. Someone needed to. They stood there in the greenhouse, surrounded by growing things, holding each other like the world outside didn't exist. And for the first time in her life, Vivian felt safe. The trial was brutal. Vivian testified for 3 days straight. She told them everything. Her mother's death, her father's abuse, the letters, the assassination attempt. She spoke clearly and calmly, even when the defense attorneys tried to twist her words, even when they called her a liar, a manipulator, a hysterical woman who couldn't be trusted. Sebastian sat in the gallery every day. He never took his eyes off her, and every time she faltered, every time the fear threatened to overwhelm her, she looked at him and kept going. On the 4th day, the verdict came. Guilty.
Lord Hartley was sentenced to hang for the murder of his wife and the attempted murder of his daughter. Vivian didn't cry when she heard the news. She didn't feel triumph or relief or anything at all. She just sat very still, staring at the judge, processing the fact that the monster who had haunted her entire life was finally going to face justice. Sebastian found her in the courthouse hallway afterward. "How do you feel?" "I don't know." She looked up at him. "Is that strange? I should feel something. Happy or relieved or vindicated. But I just feel empty." "That's not strange." He sat down beside her. "You've been fighting for so long. Now that it's over, you don't know what to do with yourself." "What do I do?" "Whatever you want." Sebastian took her hand. "That's the point, Vivian. You're free now. Truly free. You can do anything, be anything, go anywhere." "Even Paris?" "Especially Paris," he smiled. "I already wrote to Marie Fontaine. She has a place for you starting next month." Vivian's eyes widened. "You didn't." "I did." "But your estate, your responsibilities." "We'll be here when we get back." Sebastian brought her hand to his lips. "I told you I'd take you. Did you think I was lying?" "I thought you might change your mind." "Never." He pulled her to her feet. "Come on, wife. We have a future to plan." Vivian let him lead her out of the courthouse, into the sunlight, into the rest of their lives. And for the first time, she let herself believe that the future might actually be worth living. Paris was everything Vivian had dreamed of, and nothing like she'd expected. The city sprawled before them as their carriage crossed into the heart of the Latin Quarter. Vivian pressed her face to the window like a child, her breath fogging the glass, her heart racing with a mixture of terror and exhilaration. "You're going to hurt yourself," Sebastian said, amused. "I don't care." She didn't take her eyes off the buildings passing by. "Look at the architecture, the way the light hits the stone, the proportions of those windows." "I see windows." "You see windows. I see centuries of mathematical precision and artistic vision." She finally turned to him, her eyes bright. "This is where I'm going to learn to create something that matters." Sebastian smiled. "I know." "You're not nervous? About being here? About leaving Wintermore?" "Terrified." He took her hand. "But I'd rather be terrified with you than comfortable without you." Vivian squeezed his fingers. "You're getting better at that." "At what?" "Saying romantic things without looking like you're about to be sick." He laughed, a real laugh, full and warm, the kind she'd only started hearing in the past few weeks, the kind that made her chest ache with how much she loved him. Love. She still wasn't used to the word, still caught herself testing it, turning it over in her mind like a stone she'd found on a beach, examining it for cracks. But every day it felt more solid, more real. Marie Fontaine's studio was on the third floor of a narrow building near the Seine. Vivian climbed the stairs with her heart in her throat, Sebastian trailing behind her, carrying her portfolio of architectural sketches. The door opened before she could knock. "You are late." Marie Fontaine was not what Vivian had expected. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that missed nothing. She looked Vivian up and down like she was evaluating a building for structural flaws. "The carriage was delayed," Vivian said. "The roads—" "I do not care about roads. I care about time. Time is the only thing we cannot recover." Marie's gaze shifted to Sebastian. "And this is the husband who steals you from your studies?" "I'm not stealing anyone," Sebastian said. "I'm supporting her." Marie did not look convinced. "We shall see." She turned and walked into the studio without another word. Vivian shot Sebastian a panicked look.
"Go," he said softly. "I'll be fine." "She hates me already." "She doesn't hate you."
She's testing you. He kissed her forehead. Pass the test. Vivian took a breath, squared her shoulders, walked into the studio, and began the hardest 3 months of her life. Marie Fontaine was brilliant. She was also demanding, exacting, and utterly without patience for excuses. This line is crooked. It's only a fraction off. A fraction becomes a foot, becomes a collapsed building. Again. Vivian redrew the line, and the next one, and the next. She drew until her fingers cramped, until her eyes blurred, until she couldn't tell the difference between a wall and a window anymore. And slowly, gradually, she began to understand. Architecture wasn't just about buildings. It was about people, about creating spaces that held lives, that sheltered dreams, that stood against time and weather and the endless grinding of the world. Every line mattered, every angle, every calculation. Because if you got it wrong, people died.
"You are learning,"
Marie said one evening, 3 weeks into Vivian's training. It was the closest thing to a compliment she'd ever offered. Am I?
"Your lines are straighter. Your eye is sharper. You are beginning to see what matters."
Marie set down her pen.
"But you are still holding back."
Holding back what?
"Yourself."
The older woman's gaze was piercing.
"You draw like someone afraid to be seen, afraid to put something into the world that could be judged, criticized, rejected."
Vivian looked away. I've spent my whole life being judged.
"Then stop caring about judgment. Care about truth."
Marie tapped the drawing on the table between them.
"A building cannot lie. It either stands or it falls. It either serves its purpose or it does not. There is no room for pretense, for performance, for the masks people wear to survive."
I don't know how to stop wearing masks.
"Then you will never be a great architect."
Marie's voice softened, just slightly.
You will be a good one.
Competent, skilled, but not great. Because greatness requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires courage. Vivian was quiet for a long moment. My mother was an artist, she said finally. She gave it up when she married. My father told her it was frivolous, that it didn't matter, that she should focus on being a wife and mother instead. She swallowed hard. She believed him, and she spent the rest of her life small and quiet and afraid. And you are afraid you will become her. I'm afraid I already have. Marie studied her. Then she stood, crossed to the window, and looked out at the city. I was married once, she said, to a man who told me the same things your father told your mother, that my work was worthless, that I was worthless, that the only value I had was in serving him. Vivian's breath caught. What happened? I left. Marie turned back to face her. I packed a single bag in the middle of the night and walked out of my house with nothing but my drawings and my determination. I was 23 years old. I had no money, no connections, no plan, and I was terrified. How did you survive? I worked. I learned. I failed more times than I can count. But I kept going, because the alternative was becoming someone I couldn't live with. Marie crossed back to the table. You have already done the hardest part, Vivian. You left. You survived. You found someone who sees you for who you really are. Sebastian. Yes. A ghost of a smile crossed Marie's face. He is not what I expected. What did you expect? Another man who wanted to control you. Instead, he sits in my waiting room for hours, reading books, never complaining, never demanding your attention. She raised an eyebrow. He watches you when you work, Did you know that? He watches you like you are the most fascinating thing he has ever seen. Vivian's eyes stung.
He does?
He does, and that is rare. Marie placed her hand on Vivian's shoulder. Do not waste it. Do not let fear steal what you have built.
I don't know how to stop being afraid.
You don't stop. You keep going anyway. Marie squeezed once, then released her. Now, show me the design again, and this time, draw it like you mean it. Vivian picked up her pen, and for the first time, she drew without fear. Sebastian was waiting when she finished, just as Marie had said. He was sitting in the small anteroom outside the studio, a book open in his lap, his head tilted back against the wall. He looked exhausted. He'd been looking exhausted for weeks. The strain of being so far from home, of managing the estate through letters and intermediaries, of supporting her while she worked 14-hour days. He never complained, never made her feel guilty, never suggested she was asking too much. But she saw it anyway. "Hey," she said softly. He opened his eyes, smiled.
Hey, yourself. How was it?
Hard. Good. I think I'm finally starting to understand what she's trying to teach me. That's great. He stood, stretching. Ready to go home? Home. Their small apartment near the river, with its creaky floors and drafty windows, and the view of the cathedral that made Vivian's heart ache every time she saw it. Actually, she said, I thought we could take a walk first, if you're not too tired. I'm never too tired for you. They walked along the Seine as the sun set, painting the water gold and rose. Vivian tucked her hand into the crook of Sebastian's arm, letting the rhythm of their steps settle her racing thoughts. I need to tell you something, she said. He glanced down at her. That sounds serious. It is. She stopped, turning to face him. I've been selfish. What? These past 3 months, you've given up everything for me. Your home, your responsibilities, your entire life. And I've been so focused on my work, my dreams, my goals, that I haven't stopped to ask what you want. Sebastian's expression softened. Vivian, let me finish. She took a breath. I asked Marie today why you come to the studio every day. Why you sit in that room for hours, waiting for me. And she said you watch me while I work. That you look at me like I'm the most fascinating thing you've ever seen. She's not wrong. But that's not fair. Vivian's voice cracked. You should have a life too. Dreams too. Something that's just yours, that doesn't revolve around me. I do have something that's just mine. What? You. Vivian stared at him. I know that sounds pathetic, Sebastian continued. I know I'm supposed to have ambitions and goals, and all the things that make a man respectable. But the truth is, I spent 30 years doing what I was supposed to do, being who I was supposed to be. And it made me miserable. Sebastian, you asked me once what I would do if I could choose anything. I didn't have an answer then, but I do now. He cupped her face in his hands. I would choose this. You. Us. Building a life together that doesn't look like what anyone expects. That's not a dream. That's just being with me. Exactly, he smiled. You are my dream, Vivian. You have been since the moment you opened your eyes in my study and demanded I help you escape. I didn't demand, I asked. You definitely demanded. She laughed, despite herself. Maybe a little. See, I'm not blind. He kissed her forehead. I know this arrangement isn't conventional. I know people will talk. But I stopped caring about what people think the night I married you in a candlelit chapel with nothing but my housekeeper as a witness. That was a beautiful night. It was the beginning of everything. Sebastian pulled back, meeting her eyes. So stop worrying about whether I'm happy. I've never been happier in my life.
And if that means spending my days reading in a waiting room while you become the architect you were always meant to be, then that's exactly what I want to do." Vivian's eyes overflowed. "I love you," she whispered. "I don't think I've said it enough, but I love you so much. It terrifies me." "I love you too." He wiped her tears with his thumbs. "And I'm not going anywhere." They stood there on the bridge, holding each other, while the city lights flickered to life around them. 2 months later, Vivian completed her training. Marie Fontaine stood before her assembled students, 12 women from across Europe, each of them brilliant, each of them fighters, and announced the final project results. "Third place goes to Miss Elise Beaumont for her design of a public library that balances function with beauty." Applause. "Second place goes to Miss Catherine Moore for her innovative approach to housing for the working class." More applause. Vivian's heart was pounding so hard she couldn't hear anything else. "And first place," Marie said, her eyes finding Vivian's across the room, "goes to Mrs. Vivian Blackwood for her design of a women's educational institute that demonstrates not only technical mastery, but profound understanding of what architecture can mean to those who use it." The room erupted. Vivian couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what was happening. Then Sebastian was there, lifting her off her feet, spinning her around, laughing with pure, uncomplicated joy. "You did it," he said. "You actually did it." "I did it. I knew you would." "No, you didn't." "Okay, I hoped you would." He set her down, grinning. "Same thing." Marie approached them, her expression as stern as ever, but with something warm flickering beneath the surface. "Congratulations, Mrs. Blackwood. You have proven me wrong." "Wrong about what?" "I thought you would be good, competent, skilled." Marie paused.
I was mistaken. You are great.
Vivian's eyes filled again.
Thank you for everything.
"Do not thank me. Thank yourself. Thank the husband who believed in you." Marie glanced at Sebastian. "And thank whatever force brought you to that manor house in the middle of a storm." "Fate," Vivian said. "Desperation," Sebastian corrected. "Same thing," they said together. Marie almost smiled. "Go. Celebrate. Build something that matters." They celebrated that night in their small apartment, drinking wine and eating bread and cheese and planning the future. "Where do you want to go next?" Sebastian asked. "We could stay in Paris, or travel to Italy, or home." He blinked. "Home?" "Wintermoor." Vivian set down her wineglass. "I want to go home." "I thought you loved it here." "I do, but I've proven what I needed to prove. I've become what I needed to become." She reached for his hand. "Now I want to build something real, something lasting.
Something that matters not just to me, but to the people we care about."
"What did you have in mind?"
"The Women's Institute from my design. I want to build it. At Wintermoor." Her eyes were bright. "A place where women can learn architecture, art, design, all the things they're told they can't do. A place where the next generation of Vivians won't have to fight alone." Sebastian was quiet for a long moment. "You're serious?" "Completely." "That would take years, resources, connections. It would change everything about how the estate operates." "I know." Vivian squeezed his hand. "Is that a problem?" "No." A slow smile spread across his face. "It's the best idea I've ever heard." They returned to England 6 weeks later. The manor looked different. Or maybe Vivian was different. Either way, as the carriage rolled up the drive, she felt something she'd never expected to feel. Like she was coming home. Mrs. Duncan met them at the door, tears streaming down her face.
You're back. Oh, thank heavens you're back.
"We're back," Vivian embraced her. "Did you miss us?"
Miss you? I've been counting the days. The housekeeper pulled back, examining Vivian's face. You look different.
Good different or bad different?
Happy different. Mrs. Duncan smiled through her tears. That's the best kind.
The first year was hard. Building the institute required permits, approvals, funding, political maneuvering, all the things Vivian had hoped to avoid by marrying a duke. But Sebastian handled the bureaucracy while she focused on the design, and slowly, gradually, the project took shape. They broke ground in the spring. Vivian stood on the site watching the first stones being laid and felt something shift in her chest. She was building something, something real, something that would outlast her, that would change lives, that would matter long after she was gone. "What are you thinking?" Sebastian asked, coming to stand beside her.
I'm thinking about my mother.
"What about her?"
She wanted to create something, to leave a mark on the world, but she never got the chance.
Vivian turned to look at him.
This is for her, for every woman who was told her dreams didn't matter.
She would be proud of you.
I hope so. Vivian leaned into him. I hope she can see this somehow. I hope she knows.
She knows. Sebastian kissed the top of her head. I'm certain of it. The institute opened 2 years later. Vivian stood at the front of the assembly hall, looking out at the first class of students. 23 young women, their faces bright with hope and fear and determination.
You are here, she said, because someone told you that you couldn't be.
Silence.
Someone told you that architecture was for men, that art was a hobby, that your dreams were too big, too ambitious, too impossible for a woman to achieve.
A few of the students nodded.
I'm here to tell you they were wrong.
Vivian's voice strengthened.
I'm here to tell you that everything they said about you says more about them than it does about you. That your potential is not limited by their imagination. That you can be anything, build anything, create anything you set your mind to. She looked at each of them in turn. It will be hard. It will be painful. You will doubt yourself, question yourself, want to give up more times than you can count. But you will keep going. Because that's what we do. That's who we are. She smiled. Welcome to the Wintermore Institute for Women in Architecture. Let's build something extraordinary. That night, Vivian found Sebastian in the greenhouse. He was sitting on the old stone bench, surrounded by the plants his mother had loved, looking up at the stars through the glass ceiling. There you are, she said.
Here I am.
She sat down beside him. What are you thinking about?
My mother, my father, the life I thought I was going to live.
He turned to look at her. The life I actually got instead. Any regrets?
Not a single one.
Vivian leaned her head on his shoulder. I have something to tell you.
That sounds familiar.
It's different this time. She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. Very different. Sebastian went still.
You're...
Yes.
We're going to...
Yes. He pulled back, his eyes searching her face.
Are you happy?
I'm terrified, Vivian laughed, but also happier than I've ever been.
Me too. His voice cracked. Me too.
He kissed her, soft and reverent, and Vivian felt the last of her walls crumble. She'd come to Wintermore running for her life. She'd expected to find a villain, a cage, another prison to escape. Instead, she'd found Sebastian. She'd found purpose. She'd found the strength to become someone she never thought she could be.
And now, sitting in the greenhouse with her husband's hand on her stomach, and their future stretching out before them, she finally understood what Marie Fontaine had tried to teach her. Greatness required vulnerability. Vulnerability required courage. But courage didn't mean not being afraid. It meant being afraid and choosing love anyway. 8 months later, their daughter was born. They named her Eleanor, after Sebastian's mother. She had Vivian's green eyes and Sebastian's stubborn chin, and a cry that could wake the entire household. She was perfect. Vivian held her in the quiet hours before dawn, watching the first light creep across the nursery floor. "I'm going to tell you a story," she whispered to her sleeping daughter, "about a woman who rode through a storm because she thought she had no other choice. About a man who looked at her and saw someone worth fighting for. About a love that started with fear and ended with faith." Eleanor stirred but didn't wake. "You're going to grow up in a world that tells you what you can't be, what you shouldn't want, what's impossible for someone like you." Vivian pressed a kiss to her daughter's forehead. "Don't believe them. Don't ever believe them." The door creaked open. Sebastian appeared, rumpled and sleepy, his hair sticking up at odd angles. "Is everything okay?" "Everything is perfect." He crossed to them, wrapping his arms around Vivian from behind, looking down at their daughter with an expression of wonder. "What were you telling her?" "Our story." "Already? She's 3 days old." "It's never too early to learn the important things." Vivian leaned back into him. "That she's loved, that she's capable of anything, that her dreams matter." "They do matter." Sebastian kissed her temple. "Every single one." Eleanor opened her eyes, green like her mother's, full of possibility. And Vivian smiled, because she finally understood. She'd spent 23 years believing she was trapped, believing that her life had been decided for her, that her dreams were impossible, that she would never be anything more than what others allowed her to be. She'd been wrong. Because freedom wasn't something you were given. It was something you fought for, something you built, something you chose, every single day, in every single moment, with every single breath. And now, holding her daughter in her arms, with the man she loved standing beside her, in the house they'd made into a home, surrounded by the evidence of dreams that had come true, Vivian finally knew who she was. Not a victim, not a survivor, not even an architect. She was a woman who had looked at an impossible life and refused to accept it. A woman who had ridden through a storm and found shelter in the most unexpected place. A woman who had chosen love over fear, courage over comfort, hope over certainty. And that woman, that fierce, stubborn, extraordinary woman, was finally, completely, irrevocably free.